I have Ukraine-related question, but before I go back to Iran, if I may, we discussed in this room yesterday, also today, Kirby also mentioned that if Iran violates the let's say, the deal, we will just lock it down, so we will not send that funding. It goes back to Matt's question. Can you please give us the timetable of the transaction process? What's going to look like? How many tranches will be sent? 6 billion will be divided, and at what point you will be able to weigh in? And do you have established mechanism to lock it down?
I am not going to get into the exact details of the transactions as they move from South Korea through banks in Europe, ultimately to these end accounts in Qatar. But we expect in the coming days or so that that money will move ultimately to the final destination in Qatar. With respect to the mechanisms that are available to us, we have complete visibility into these accounts and have the ability to lock them down if we see Iran attempting to take actions that are in violation of this agreement and in violation of our sanctions. I'm not going to get into what the exact technical details are, but we have the full agreement to stop their access to this account going forward.
Thank you. One more, Iran. Masa Act just passed Congress yesterday. As you know, it demands the administration to sanction Iran's human rights violators, particularly the leaders of Iran. Do you find it appropriate that, I know this is not a law yet, so there will be Senate side and the presidential signature is necessary, but Congress already have expressed its will. Do you find it appropriate that right when Iranian people are going through this painful process, this first anniversary of Masa Amini's murder, do you find it appropriate that the butcher of Iran will not only be allowed to enter the United States territory, but also will be welcomed by local human rights, local NGOs, such as Council of Foreign Relations, led by former administration officials? How appropriate is that?
So I will just say that as has been long-standing precedent, has happened under, going back really since the UN was founded and based in New York, we have an obligation as the host country to admit representatives of other countries, no matter what we think of those countries' policies, and that has long been the case as our obligation of the United Nations. With respect to the President of Iran being hosted at a think tank in New York, I won't speak to that in particular. They're obviously an independent organization that can make their own decisions, but I would say that when any organization hosts such a figure with a long history of spreading mistruths and saying things that making claims that are not accurate, we would just urge them to watch very carefully what he says, make sure they hold him accountable, make sure that their members have full access to truthful, accurate information. I would expect that they would do that.
And the fact that
one more, and then I'm going to.
Thanks so much. The fact that bill passed the House, will that change your calculus on your end in terms of sanctioning Iran's supreme leader before it becomes a law?
I'm just not going to preview any specific sanctions.
Please come back to me later on Ukraine.
Let me go to Libya.
But the